Yeah, I can't sing it. Welcome to this very first live stream I've ever done. I'm going to be doing some fines cleaning tonight. I've got just hanging out by the sink, and I wanted to invite everybody to come check things out and see how it was all going. I just I have a ton of fines to clean tonight, and I don't really know where to start. I've got a ton of metal fines, and you know, it looks like a bunch of junk, but there's going to be some treasure in here. I already see some marbles and some interesting pieces, some casters. I'm sure there's some great stuff in here. It's going to take some investigation to figure out what that is. There's some really old lead in here, so I'm excited to get started on that. So I have all of those metal fines, and I have a ton of fines that my wife and I eyeballed. Hey, Mama Christine, thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for being here. Bart Cubbins, great to see you. Welcome. I'm going to be doing some marbles that we eyeballed. We like to have these marble eyeball hunts, and I just call them kind of marble harvests because most of what we find is marbles, the vast majority at least. We also find a ton of prosser buttons, any kind of non-metallic pickup. We found a bunch of coins washed out, mainly wheat cents, because that's the era of things, of sites that we like to eyeball. So we're going to be cleaning a bunch of those things too. I'm just going to give you all a little preview of that if I can fit this case in here to show you. I don't know if I can fit it in. Yeah, so we've got a bunch of stuff here. We've got a ton of beads, just a pile of beads. We've got a pile of marbles, and there's other metallic fines and bottles, some small bottles. So I'm just going to dive in. The most important thing here is to put something in the bottom of your sink so you don't lose anything that you're... thanks so much, Bart. So you don't lose anything and wash anything down the drain. That would be super bad. I'm going to adjust this just a little bit so I can see you all's chat at the same time. Super important. Cheap item, very important. I'll probably put some water, save a little water. I'll put some water in this bowl and probably put some things over. I generally water clean most things. The things that I don't water clean are the things that require a different method of cleaning, like toothpicking. Sometimes I'll also use a little dot of dish soap on an aluminum item and a brass bristled brush. As you can see, mine has seen better days, but these are pretty inexpensive ways to clean aluminum items, and just a dot of dish soap and rubbing that item. Tax tokens work super well. Any sort of aluminum item that you want to clean, religious medallions, works great that way. I also have a couple of other tools here. I have just a common toothbrush that I'm going to use to clean anything that's submerged in water. And of course I have various toothpicks. I use these barbecue shish kebab skewers. Nice thing about these is that you can toothpick with these the brass items that you find, and you can get the letters off of those. You can be able to see the design there. So the nice thing about these toothpicks is that you can sharpen them indefinitely. I mean, I've been using the same 4 toothpicks for years, and I have a knife here that I actually dug at the beach that I just use because it's, I use it to open packages from folks, and I just sharpen these toothpicks down, and you can just keep those points sharp, forever. If you didn't want to buy a pack of shish kebab sticks for a couple bucks, you could also probably use a chopstick or something like that. If you get food with chopsticks very often, just save the wooden ones, save a pair, and you'll have 2. That'll probably last you the rest of your life, to be honest. So I use these for toothpicking the very tops of letters or designs, and it leaves the patina down in the groove so that when you wipe it with a finger, with a dry finger, you can see the design on an item. And I did find a button back that I will certainly be doing that to. Unfortunately, it's a ruined Civil War button. The button itself is hey, Mud Swat, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you. Rock tumbler. Uh-oh. That's bad news, buddy. That's an expensive piece of equipment to replace. Anyhow, so you can see that it's just the back of this button, unfortunately. But what I do is I go and toothpick there so that I can then wipe with a finger and be able to read and at least see maybe what the manufacturer, the time period of the button that's destroyed is. So I've got that pulled out. Generally, you don't want to do that with water. You just want to do that with a dry cleaning because water is a cleaning method. So I pulled that out of there. I'm not going to get that wet. Of course, I do take some things to the recycling bin. So I have a couple of containers just left over from some various food items like salads and junk. And I'm just going to fill those up with the brass and the lead items here that I'm not going to keep. So let's get started here. Later on, we get a couple people in. I'll maybe ask you all what you would prefer to see cleaned first. I'm just going to keep some water running here. You know, we've got all kinds of equipment set up here, so it's pretty crazy. Electricity and live streaming. It's going to happen, but it might be shocking. Anyhow, oh wow, Bart, yeah, catch you in a second, buddy. So I'm just gonna get some things and kind of throw them in the soup here, and I'm gonna look for things that I think are not anything that has a design on it that I need to necessarily keep to dry clean. Now, if there is something that I find that's going to be dry cleanable, I generally will pull that out and not get it wet. So that's pretty important. And I know some of you all probably like, oh, I got so many finds I need to clean myself. Well, what's the goal of this? I mean, I'll tell you what the goal is. The goal is that I will maybe have some items that you've seen before, maybe have some items that you yourself have needed to clean or have cleaned or have found and weren't really able to identify. So that's the goal. And I figure, you know, for those people who can't dig over the summer months because it's too darn hot, or can't dig over the winter months because it's too darn cold, then it's a nice escape for them to be able to still stay connected to the hobby and still do some stuff. Mud Swat, I'm sure you have some great relics in your bucket of relics, buddy. I know for a fact you probably got some treasure in there. So, all right. So I'm separating some of the aluminum out. I can already tell that some of this is aluminum. Those are aluminum pieces. They're very lightweight. I might just dunk them in water once before I start here, just to double check. But I think all of those are aluminum pieces. And then I have a couple of pieces here also. I have a couple of pieces here also of some marbles and some glass and some crosser buttons. I have this one really weird piece. I don't know what in the world that is. And I'll figure that out in a second. But that's kind of strange. Anyhow, so yeah, let's get started here. I'm about through all of this. I just have a couple of lead-headed nails and some junk left. Go ahead and dump those over. That's definitely a snap or a button off of a pair of jeans. That's what's called a tack button. So that had a two-piece design, and it's off of some sort of denim. So I'm going to put that aside so that I can dry clean that later, just in case it has some sort of a design on it. Now, yeah, I'm almost done separating this stuff out here, and I'll get started with the cleaning. It just takes a while to separate out all this stuff. All right, so I'm going to dunk this stuff just to make sure it's aluminum. Yeah, that's looking aluminum-y. Yep, that's all just aluminum junk. So I'm going to toss that out. And everything else should be something worth investigating. So, first thing we're going to do is start pulling out some pieces here and see what we've got. Okay, so let's see here. That's just a common bullet, I'm sure. Lead bullet. Yep, it's got part of the casing there intact still, as you can see. I don't know what the best light is for you all. Maybe that. Let me know. That's choice B. This is choice A. Let me know if one of those lighting is better than the other. Once again, here's choice B. Here's choice A. Mud, I would love to see that. I love those ox knobs because they're pretty cool. I figured B would be the best. Thanks so much. Those ox knobs are pretty cool because they. Have you ever found one that has the horn still in it? I've got a couple that I found that had the horn still inside of the ox knob. Pretty wild. I think this piece is probably just a little tiny piece of an escutcheon plate. It's probably one of those William and Mary style ones. That's maybe a keyhole right there. I might just put that aside to see if that's something later on. These are not marked, but sometimes you can find the remaining pieces of something and piece it back together. So that's gonna go over to the side. I definitely know what this is. This is a piece of electrical garbage. And it is probably copper, if I had to guess. The big quest here is to not splash the camera. Here's a piece of wire that I dug earlier. It works great for this type of thing. Yeah, definitely some sort of an electrical piece. Yep, that is copper recycling. That's what that is. And then, yeah, I get so excited when I see pieces like this, thinking maybe that's going to be a piece of a shoulder scale. Unfortunately, it's not. It's not a shoulder scale. I don't see any design on it, so I think I can risk just slightly bending it back to check the inside. I don't see any marks anywhere. So I'm thinking this is just another piece of brass sheeting or copper sheeting. A lot of times you see these items, and a lot of times this brass type stuff is pieces of copper plates. People had, of course, the china plates, but they also had mess plates that were basically a piece of copper or brass, and then they had a rolled edge. A lot of times they would roll that around a thin piece of wire. And of course, you know, that could be taken anywhere, out to work or to eat off of in any sort of a way. And it was indestructible, basically. I mean, you could drop it, run over it with a tractor or whatever, and it wouldn't matter because it was a brass mess plate that was pretty indestructible. So you see a lot of pieces of those, and of course they used brass and copper sheeting in a lot of different applications. So I think that's all that is. So that's going in the recycling bin. This is a piece of rivet from a bucket. Yep. I thought it might be a piece of a folding ruler, but it's definitely a bucket rivet. And there's so much iron mixed in with that, I think that's gonna have to go in the trash. All right, so then let's see, that's another piece of aluminum that made it in, so that's gonna go in the trash. Now that's a weird thing. I don't know what that is. I have not encountered anything like that. The top is lead. Well, you know, it's even more interesting here because that's a hole from a spindle, almost like a spindle would be like a door. You know, spindle would be on a door, on a doorknob. But that's an interesting item. Huh. Very interesting. I've not seen anything like that. It had a lead top. So weird. It has a hole right here too, which even more makes it look like it had a set screw there that went into that spindle. Huh. Well, I've seen a lot of relics, but that's one I definitely have not seen. That's very strange. I would totally say that that was a piece from a door if it didn't have the lid on top. Really weird. Okay, so anytime you see something that's completely weird, save it. I mean, the longer you've done this hobby, the more you get to the point where you're like, I haven't seen that before, so I'm gonna save that. Okay, so that is definitely getting saved. Really strange. Okay, another piece of imposter aluminum. That's gonna go in the trash. And a piece of a pipe here. Yep. And that's got a lot of dirt in it. So anything that's got a ton of dirt in, I'm just going to leave it to soak, and I'll clean it later. That's not going to be anything that I want to keep. Some sort of industrial piece of some sort. So I'll probably not be keeping that. And here is a, yeah, I'm sure it's lead, mud swat. I think it is. I mean, it's white lead oxide, and it's got some dents in it that you know, that are kind of strange looking. Anything ceramic would have fragmented instead of bent. So I don't think it's ceramic. It's just a weird piece. I've seen caps off of things like alternator or distributor caps or things like that that have those kinds of pieces, but this is some sort of a piece of a pipe. When I see something like this, it gives a good target like this. It's great because I know that it's probably never been metal detected before, whatever the site is. But that's a great sign generally. And it's a nice recycling piece too, because it weighs a lot. Hey, Hot Mess, how are you? Hey, thanks so much for sharing me out. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for helping the treasure fam here. This is a lead-headed nail for sure. Here's another piece of that lead sheeting. Again, I just check it for designs. I check it for lead filling, because a lot of times you can find a belt plate that looks, you know, totally crazy. I mean, looks crazy, bent up, you know, almost a little fragment of it. And you'll be like, no, it's a piece of trash. But then you notice that it's got some lead filling on the back, and you're like, holy cow, that's a US plate. So I don't discount anything until I've been able to look at it pretty well. And that is nothing at all. Darn. We got a pipe fitting here. This site has some old stuff in it, but you got to work hard for it. So I was out there messing around, hoping for something good. All right, here we have another piece of brass, just some junk. I'm gonna get later on in this fines cleaning. I'm like, hey Gene, how are you? Hey, welcome. Thanks so much for coming. Later on this fines cleaning, I'm gonna get through some of these metal items real quick, and I'm going to get to the glass and pottery items, including a bunch of marbles, which I know that you all are excited to see. I got the D. There's a little D there. Got the big D in here. These are horse buckles, obviously. I think the ones that are like chromed or plated are generally later, probably 20th century. Ones that are just brass, maybe earlier, but anytime you see that kind of curved appearance, a lot of times those are later ones. They all had iron tongues, which have deteriorated away, and so forth. So that's what those are. And I used to keep these, but after a couple hundred, I don't keep them anymore. So I put them in the recycling. Maybe one day I'll start giving them out as prizes. Yeah. So what have you all been digging today? That's what I want to know. What have you all dug this week? Drop me a comment. Let me know. I'd love to know what the types of things y'all are finding. And let me just make a little quick comment about this lead. This lead oxide. If you clean a lot of this stuff, it is toxic. Always wash your sink really well when you're done. Lead oxide is a poison. I want to say that back in the 1600s and 1500s, they would put this lead oxide and vinegar mixture. I think it was called cerulean or cerule or something like that. I forget the name of it, but they would paint their faces with it because they wanted to have a white complexion, you know, beautiful, perfect porcelain complexion. It said that they'd never been outside to have to work. And so this lead oxide is this white lead is what that is. And it is a toxic substance. So it can cause lead poisoning and you know, birth defects and things like that. So if you're cleaning a lot of this, I would maybe wear gloves. If you're cleaning in a sink or around food items, I would definitely wash everything completely and so forth. Okay, so that's very old lead there, but it's not anything cool. So that goes in the recycling. Hey, Gene, I'd be happy to mail you some buckles. I've got tons of them. Yeah, send me an email at buckleboymetaldetecting at gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send you some horse buckles there. I've got tons. They would probably make a pretty cool sculpture. Look, you just read my mind. They would make an excellent sculpture. They would make a cool wind chime, I would think, because the bigger ones have a neat sound when you kind of tap on them a little bit. So we've got some more pieces of junk here. Nothing great so far. Let's see what else is down here. Okay, here is a double looped suspender. Yeah, happy to help. Happy to. Here's a double looped, because these items I would just throw away otherwise, you know, so. Yeah, that is a double looped suspender clip. It's going to be too fragile to bend back. I might try to heat that and bend that, maybe in a future episode, but I think it's going to be too fragile to bend back into shape. It's got a double loop there. It's part of a Guillot suspender by Charles Guillot out of Paris, right around the turn of the century. These were popular, maybe 1880s to 1910s or so, and this was part of a two-piece set. This piece was the upper piece, and then the lower piece was a hard cast piece that actually said Guillot on it. So they were part of a pair. So kind of a cool item there. I like that. I keep all of those just because they tell the story of the occupants who lived there in whatever house it was. So that's a keeper. Another piece of junk brass. It's not really much of anything. I'm going to kind of fast forward through some things here. So that's a recycling piece. I fished these buckles out for you, Gene. Here's a piece of probably a clock frame. It's got some gilding on it. There's a piece of aluminum. That's an imposter. All right, so getting down here to the bottom, I'm going to clean up these casters. This one's chipped. I probably won't save that. But of course, these were on items that you had to move around, heavy items. They were on sofas, things like that, chairs. You know, back in the 19th century, you know, when you had something that was heavy, you didn't want to mar your floors. All of them were hardwood floors. Nobody had a nice composite floor that would withstand a nuclear test. You know, they were all hardwood floors. Sometimes they had you know, rugs and so forth on those floors. But the other advantage of being able to move your furniture around without marking your floors was that people don't realize that there wasn't any lighting in homes in the 19th century, especially in rural areas. But if you needed light to see your sewing, or you needed a light you wanted to be warmer to the fire, you would move the whole couch closer to the fire. You would move the whole chair closer to the window to be able to see your sewing and so forth, or to get more light. So that's what these casters were good for. That's a nice example. I'll keep that one. I have a whole jar of them. Pretty cool. So moving on here. Let's see, looks like that's pot metal. I do not save pot metal. I don't know what composition it is, but it's not brass or lead. This is probably zinc if I had to guess, this kind of weird color. I likewise do not save those because they will not take your lead recycling if you put zinc in there. That's pretty bad. But at any rate, let me get the rest of these little bits done here. Looks like we've got, what do we have here in the bottom? Looks like more pieces of sheeting, copper sheeting here. One piece of aluminum, that's gonna go in the trash. That looks like a tiny keyhole. Okay, I'm gonna put that here for just a second. I'll come back to it. That's some sort of a bale seal or something similar. Okay, that's a lead item. We've got one fired musket ball. Hey, Jersey Ray, how's it going? Welcome. Yeah, thanks for coming. Awesome. We're just cleaning some fines here. I'm gonna get to the marbles later on. Got two pack rivets. Obviously these were on every single leather good, which is why you find so darn many of them. They had a nail piece and then the rivet part, the burr, B-U-R-R, and that was put on the end. So you would take this piece, punch it through your leather, and then take the washer part and put that on the end, and then peen that on with the hammer. So every one of these was individually made, which is kind of cool. And of course, they were on any two pieces of leather that you had to connect. So they would use this. They sold them by, I think, by the pound in these early catalogs. And they're really horse tack items mainly. I mean, they were used for 100 years or more, at least. So that's rivets and burrs, kind of cool. They are copper. They are made out of copper, so that's why they ring up so high. A lot of times you'll find one of these little washers and you'll say, why in the world did that ring so high on the metal detector? Well, the reason is because it's made out of copper. It's not made out of brass. So of course it's gonna ring high. There's another random bullet and another one of those rivets. Okay. What else do we have in here? Some more pieces. I'm going to check these. Always check everything so closely. More rivets and burrs. There's another piece of zinc. Almost to the bottom here. There's a prosser button. Piece of pot metal. Oops. Piece of pot metal, which I'm not going to save. Hey, go take care of your frozen goodies there, Jersey Ray. We'll talk here in a bit. I'm looking forward to seeing your video this week and chatting a little bit then. So here's another piece of lead. It's just a nondescript piece of fired lead, so I'm not going to belabor that. And I'm going to need a good cleaning of this sink when I'm done, that's for sure. Oh, we got some little treasures here in the bottom. Okay, another piece of bullet, and that's a harmonica reed piece. You can see harmonicas generally had two reed plates, a top reed plate and a bottom reed plate. And the reeds were at different, on different sides. So one you would blow through and create the sound, the other one you would draw through or suck the air in to create the sound. So that's kind of interesting. All right. I think that's, oh, here's a corset clasp. Okay, so that attached to the iron busk that went up the corset. And of course, these were so notoriously hard to attach that you had to have a corset hook a lot of times to pull that thing over and to fasten it. Pretty wild. Sometimes to keep the iron off of my display cases, I'll take a little tiny hammer that I have and I'll tap that a couple times just to tap the rust off, because of course that's not going to stay. But that is a corset clasp, and it had two little prongs there that attach into the iron busk of the corset to, conform to the beauty standards of the day. What else do we have in here? One more lead-headed nail and an aluminum button that doesn't have any writing on it. All right, I did have. Let's see, is there anything else in here? Just a prosser button. Cool. So I did set aside earlier this, I'm going to do a little bit of rinsing here. Try not to get in my equipment wet. All right. So I did set this aside earlier. And, oh man, mud. Here's the thing about pull tabs. If you dig enough pull tabs, you're going to get something good. It's just a matter of time, mud swat. So, you just got to be willing to put the time in order to get what you want to find. Anyhow, so this item is a tiny keyhole from Keyhole Escutcheon. There's a little keyhole shape in there. I've only recovered one or two of these. I think I'll probably take that hammer and kind of beat that rust off just gently, tap that rust off so that I can see the keyhole shape before I put that in the display case. Yeah, let me tell you a little story, Mud, about some pull tabs. ages ago, back in, I think it was 1993, I decided to go out to a park. I was like, you know what, I really want to dig a gold ring, and I've never dug a gold ring before. I just found my first silver coin like the year before. And so I was like, I'm just gonna, I've heard that gold hides in the pull tabs and it's about the same signal and so forth. And so I went out and dug and dug and dug, and I must have dug, you know, like a gallon jug full of pull tabs. I mean, I was there all day long. But sure enough, I actually got my first gold ring that day, and it was a shocker because I just did not want to dig the signal because it was the same as everything else. It was right around the aluminum range, and I'll never forget that. I've still got that little ring. It was a little ring like was made like in a C shape to go around a diamond solitaire, and it had like 4 little diamonds around it. It was a 14K ring, so pretty amazing. Patty says, I just got my first trade token the other day. The place is from 455 miles away from me. Wow, that has traveled. Goodness, that's pretty awesome. That is really pretty awesome. Goodness. So what I'm going to ask you all is, what do you all want to see clean next? I've got beads. I've got more metal finds. I've got some bottles. I've got marbles. Just let me know. Type in the chat and tell me what you'd like to see clean next, and I'll be happy to clean that now. So yeah, pretty wild. Wow, that definitely traveled a long way. Goodness. What I thought sounded like a pull tab under a bush on my property was a gold men's wedding band. Got to dig them. Goodness, Gene, you're 100% spot on there with that comment. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Okay, we've already got a vote for marbles. Let's see. This site was an orphanage in the 1700s. Then it was a schoolhouse. After that, in the 1940s, they built a brick middle school. Oh, wow. A sports field for 300 years. That, yes, sign me up. Wow. Let's do some marbles. Sounds like people are all about some marbles, and I would love to do some marbles. So, jump out the trash here. And I have a couple of marbles hiding down in here that I had taken out of that other stuff. And so I'll go ahead and clean those first. Here's one of those burrs, by the way, from Rivet and Burr. That's what you would put on the other side after you punch the leather through with the tack part of the pack rivet, and then you put that on it and beat it with a hammer to flatten the metal down over it and create a nice seal. At any rate, here's a bottle stopper. I'm going to put this faucet on just a trickle here, so that I can, and it'll fill up this bowl. So that's a bottle stopper. That's very sharp, but I like the fact that these bottle stoppers. Yeah, Mud Swat. When are we gonna go digging? Oh, people are drinking there for 60 years. Oh, well, never mind. It's not. No, I'm just kidding. I'm no stranger to trash. My digging buddy doesn't understand how I just will dig trash for days in order to find something. Yep, so there's a bottle stopper. It's kind of turned purpley colored. I've heard that the sunlight does that. If somebody can confirm that, but that's been laying in the field for a very long time. Pretty awesome. So there that is. Now we have marble number 1. Let's see what this thing is here. A lot of times I've found that when there's any sort of dings on a marble, that sometimes you can kind of poke at it with a toothbrush and it will get all the dirt out of the dings there. So it looks like we have a marble that is pretty much clear. It's interesting. It has just a very faint kind of cat's eye appearance in the center of it. I don't know if you all can see that or not, but that's kind of cool. Hey Hondo, how's it going, buddy? Manganese and sunlight. Yeah, thanks so much for confirming that. I thought that was the case. Hey, I appreciate it so much, buddy. Thanks for the compliment there about my knowledge. I've been doing this a long time, and I love learning anything I can about any relic. It doesn't matter how small it is. You know, it's funny. I used to throw away carpet tacks, like upholstery tacks from like colonial times and so forth. And I just didn't, just a tiny little tack head, like the actual iron part is gone, or sometimes it's bent over or whatever. And these just tiny little things, like it's smaller than the top of a pack rivet. And I used to throw those things away. And then one day I was like, every single one of those things was sand cast, and it was handmade and hand finished. And after I realized that, I was like, I'm going to start saving these things. This is kind of a cool marble. Yeah, that is kind of interesting. Wow. That's got some nice coloration there on that. Hunting in New Hampshire. I would say for New Hampshire, get permission on any sort of a farm and walk through that farm, and you're going to find some cool stuff. Hot mess. I think it's hard to go wrong in New Hampshire as long as you're out on an old property, because people have been in that area so long. It's not like out west where you have to find the spots. But that's a pretty marble right there. It's unfortunately chipped right there, but kind of neat. All right, so there's 2 marbles already. I promised you all I would take a look at this weird thing here. I don't know what that is. That's so weird. It almost looks like it's got a little daisy design there. Yeah, Patty, I do have Facebook, and I'm happy to ID your finds for you. My Facebook is Buckleboy. I think it's maybe Buckleboy Metal Detecting. But you can find me on Facebook certainly, and please do drop me a line. If somebody who's a mod wants to drop my Facebook in there in the link, my hands are kind of wet right now. Let's see, Mud Swat. Yeah, find places that look like good detecting. You can find places that aren't so appealing. Yeah, exactly. Find those places that you think some people may have passed up, and you're gonna find old stuff. Very cool. Now, Patty, I will warn you, I'm not marbles. I am very I'm a newbie at marble identifications, and so thanks, Mud, for sharing that. I appreciate you, buddy. I am a newbie at marble identifications. I'm trying to learn more about it, but I do not know a lot about marble IDs. And now there is a marble collectors page on Facebook. There's a marble collectors group, and they will ID individual marbles for you here and there as long as you don't flood them with requests. Now, I don't know what in the world this thing is. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. There's no attachment to it. It looks like it's got like a flower design there. It almost is turquoise colored, and it doesn't have any sort of attachment at all. That's a weird thing. Now, I've never seen anything like that before. No clue. Absolutely no clue. So that'll be, every time I dig, I find something I've never seen before. And so it starts a new question and a new bunch of research to try to figure it out. All the rest of these things in here are, let's see, Mud Swat says, I've done the best at places off the beaten path and not the ones that you drive by and think, wow, I want to hunt there. Yeah, those types of spots are the spots that you want to be at. Now these Prosser buttons are kind of interesting. Prosser, Prosser. Here's 2 different types. The one on the left is, that shape with that rim is made by the machinery that pressed it. It's like a pressed composite. And it was named, these things were named after a guy named Prosser who perfected that process of making these buttons out of that ceramic. That it's like pressed ceramic dust, and it's like pressed to like 300 pounds per square inch or something crazy. But he perfected that process, and I want to say in like the 1840s. So these can date that old. The ones you want to try to find are the ones that have a calico print design on them, because those are collectible, and there's like several hundred types of the calico designed ones that are very collectible. And to put it in perspective, like, let me just show you this. Here is about half of the Prosser buttons that I've found. Every one of those was picked up individually, metal detecting. And, they're in a giant tin. Now, like, talk about the amount of time to, like, pick those up, clean all of those buttons. I mean, it weighs 5 pounds, 6 pounds. And out of all of those buttons, I've gotten 2 examples that were the calico print. So if you see those, they are definitely valuable and interesting. So here's the main 2 types that I find in my sites down here. The type on the left is just the normal Prosser button. It's just the one I call plain Prosser button. And the one on the right is I call pie crust Prosser button, because it's got this kind of pie design around the outside edge. You find these sometimes with 4 holes, sometimes with 3 holes, and sometimes with 2 holes. So those are kind of interesting, and that's what those are. Now let's clean some more marbles. How about it? I'm going to rinse out this sink again. Woo! It's getting gross. All right. Rinsing out the sink again here, and we'll be good to go with some marbles. All right. HUD house. Yeah. Yeah, Virginia. Yeah. How long were you in Virginia, Mess? Did you all have fun there? Did you do a lot of digging? Oops. Man down. Okay. So I've got some pretties in here. I got one big marble, which unfortunately was also broken, which is a shame. But this would have been a big shooter. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. And goodness, yeah, it's a shame. These bigger marbles, they make bigger targets for the plow. So most of the marbles that I dig are in poor shape because they've been in the plowed fields for so long. It's hard to get a good marble in a really good condition. This is just a plain porcelain marble. Hot Mess says, I only got to relic hunt one morning, was really happy with. That's awesome. That's what matters. That's what it's all about. Finding new finds in a new place and enjoying life and meeting new people and having fun. I've really valued the finds that I've made when I've traveled, even if I haven't found a whole lot, because the travel was part of the experience too. So it makes the finds a lot easier to deal with if you don't find much. This one almost looks like it's been burned by a cane fire. See how porous that is? They burn off the fields here, and that one was at some point at the top. It could have also been burned in a trash pit. So let's see what else here. This is a newer marble. Newer marble. Yeah, mud in, it depends on where you are. In the Old Northwest Territory, mud was like saying every 5 miles they had a house or some kind of a school before buses. Back in the 1800s, if you're in the Old Northwest Territory, they would survey all of that in 1 mile square parcels, and so every parcel, every however many miles, was supposed to have a school. They would set aside that land specifically for a one-room schoolhouse. So they are pretty darn common. And what people don't realize is that those one-room schoolhouses, yeah, the kids didn't have a lot of money in the rural areas, but they did all kinds of other things, like they did voting there sometimes. They would have town meetings and important events there, and it would kind of function like a town meeting house, so that people wouldn't have to travel all the way by horse and buggy to the nearest courthouse. So that's pretty cool. So we have another cat's eye here. That's kind of nice. It's not too beaten up. Looks like we got another white porcelain marble here. Actually, my wife's first silver was at a schoolhouse in the Old Northwest Territory up in Indiana, actually. And she dove into some brush. It was summer, it was hot, it was gross, and came out with she said she thought it was a token. It was a silver dollar. It was a Morgan dollar. So that just goes to show you what those places had. Okay, here's another marble. That's another porcelain marble, and it's a lot less stained than the first one. I've heard some people say that you can put these in a dishwasher, I would think that the heat would probably risk cracking them. They're not very valuable marbles, but I've also heard people say that you can dunk them in peroxide and put them in a windowsill with the sunlight and it'll bleach them better. I've heard people say baking soda or polydent and just drop them in. So I'm looking for a way to maybe take some of the staining like you see on this off of those marbles. So if you know anything, hit me up in a comment, drop me a message. Yeah, Mud, how long have you been digging it again, babe? Hot Mess, how long have you been digging again? Couple of years maybe. It just takes a little bit of time. I know, Mud, you've been digging for quite some time because I've known you from the old treasure net for years, buddy. Well, that's kind of a cool marble. I don't know if that would qualify as an onion skin or not, but that's kind of a neat design. It's very cloudy and it's a small marble, but it's a very pretty marble and it's in great shape too. Excellent, excellent, excellent. 20 years, wow. Wow. Yeah, great work, buddy. Yeah, I know you found some great stuff. Enjoyed our friendship on the forums for so long. Seems like you were on the forum or had just come to the forum, or by the time I got on that forum, which is like probably 2006 or 2008 or something. It's been a while. This is another cat's eye. It's got a couple of dings, but I like that. We find an embarrassing number of marbles. When we go out and eyeball the fields, we will often come back with 30, 40, 50 marbles. Our record was almost 90 marbles in one hunt, and that's all we did was just walk and eyeball. And that is a beautiful marble. That is not damaged in any way. It is got some nice coloration. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Again, most of these that you get in a plowed field are damaged. Oh, you were moderator with them for a while, Mud. That's wild. I would not have wanted that job back in the old days. I wasn't always the best member on that site. I like to stir stuff up too, stir the pot some. But that's another nice marble, just small, but nice coloration. Yeah, I get focused on targets too a lot, and sometimes would forget to check for marbles in holes. But yeah, it's always a possibility, even in a yard. Occasionally I got a bonus marble in a yard. That's another pretty example. Not much damage. I want to say in this, because I've got what 20 here in this bowl, and I think there's probably another 20 or 30 over there in the bin of the items that we dug. Pretty wild. There's another marble. It blows my mind, the number of manufacturers and the number of styles of these items that you get. Just crazy. Gene, 20 plus for me. My first one was a Radio Shack back in the 90s. That's awesome. Didn't get heavy into it until I bought a White's MXT. You know, White's made some great machines, and people used to knock them a little bit because, you know, they had some of the heavier machines in the industry. Another marble here, pretty one, beautiful. Had some of the heavier ones in the industry, and you know, the XLT I think was supposed to be extra light, was what that was supposed to mean, and so as opposed to the old Eagle Spectrum, which was, you know, significantly heavier to swing around. Hey David, how's it going, buddy? Clay ones seem to come out whole more often than glass in fields. That is very true. I don't know why that is. Maybe the clay gives a little bit against the sand or soil because it's all kind of the same stuff. Maybe the glass is more inflexible when it's struck. But that's a nice marble too. I just love finding these things. They're just so cool. Yeah, I bet you're right, David, about that. I've noticed that too, that I don't get as many broken or chipped ones. Or maybe the surface of them is just more forgiving with those. Hey, Patty, thanks so much. Appreciate it. We're always, all of us are learning all the time. So, you know, that it is what it is. And none of us are ever, none of us ever know anything, everything. None of us have ever found everything there is to find. Nobody's machine is ever going to find everything. And that's just kind of the way it is. That's a more modern marble. I'm looking for ponal marks on these two as I'm going, just to kind of see what's there. Yeah, I appreciate the shout out there, Patty. Really do. This is another cat's eye. You know, when I see these, when I see all these little dents like this, it makes me wonder: is that from the plow, or is that from some kid playing? Now there is a ponal mark. I'm almost certain that's what that is. Right there in the center, you can see that there in the light. I don't think that's a chip. So, you know, it makes me think: did all of these happen from kids playing with them over the years, or did the plow cause all of those? I have to think that the plow wouldn't have caused many of them. It has to be mainly from kids playing with those items and, you know, loving on those toys. Gene says the MXT with the visual pick ID. Yeah, absolutely. It was cool. Yeah, not very reliable though. One of the most interesting machines that White's ever came out with actually was the blue and the gray. I don't know if any of you all had any experience with that machine, but that machine actually had Civil War relics on it, on its ID screen, and so you would hit something that would be like a mid-range target, and it would say mini ball, and so forth. Pretty wild. I mean, not really applicable to anything else, but a Civil War site, but a cool machine anyhow. Patty says, my first detector was a $50 one from Amazon. Well, you got to start somewhere. That's a neat marble too. Just all of the bubbles in that glass, and, you know, really neat. Very cool. Yeah, so got to start somewhere. Completely plain white marble, tiny little thing. Almost wonder if that was like from a Chinese checkers or another game or something. Hot Mess says, I honestly don't think I would like a detector that gave you 100% sure what you were swinging over. It takes some of the, yeah, I get you. But, you know, part of this is that a detector can never do that because, I mean, look, there's never going to be, we're never going to even know what all of the things that we find out of the ground or be able to ID them ourselves. That is an awesome marble. Wow. Yeah, we're never even going to be able to ID them all ourselves. So, you know, a detector will never be able to do that. But, you know, I know a lot of people who would like that because they would like to know what they were going to, so they could leave the trash behind. But, you know, part of this is that the things you work for the hardest are the things that are most rewarding. If everybody could just go out and dig a gold coin every weekend, it might get old. You know, or gold coin, what would happen is if everybody could do that, then there would be no gold coins left in the ground anymore. Or if everybody could do that, then gold would not be valuable anymore because people wouldn't value it as much. So pretty wild. That is just a cool marble. It's almost got like a greeny kind of brown color to it mixed in there in that swirl and that white base. Really cool marble. Let's see what else we've got in here. First one I had was an analog detector. Yeah, I didn't have an analog, Patty, but I did have, I did go hunting before I started with some friends' machines that were like compass machines. And they were the kind that you would sweep over and the needle would go over to show what you had. Pretty cool. So I definitely remember that experience of hunting with those. But I never had owned one myself. My first detector was a 1266 Fisher. That is a baby doll arm or leg. You see it's got the number 5 there. Those numbers were not, they didn't correspond to anything. They weren't like a certain size, but they might have been like a size within a company, but not across all companies. Kind of like thimbles. You know, a thimble will have a number on it, but that size doesn't really mean anything. British thimble, an American thimble, all the numbers are going to be different. Even two thimbles that are the same size. The numbers will be different by different companies. So the same thing's true with these dolls. So that may be a size number 5 for that doll, or it may be that you bought a certain size depending on what size of body you wanted to sew at home to put the doll parts on. Of course, when you bought doll pieces, you could get legs and arms, but also they had shoulders and heads. The shoulders and heads don't ever survive, and as you can see, this arm didn't really survive either, but that's pretty cool. China dolls. Yeah. Let's see what else we've got in here. Oh, here's another China doll piece. Pretty cool. Yep, pretty neat. I've got a low battery light. Why are you going to do this to me? It's plugged in. Do not interrupt the live stream. All right. Guess my filming is taking the battery faster than the charger can supply it. Either that or I've ground it out here somewhere. I'm going to get a shock later on. Anyhow, so there is a busted up doll. And what else do we have in here? I felt something cool. Yeah, there is that is the top of a doll tea set. It's broken, but I have some complete examples. But that's kind of cool too. Hot Mess says my first stick was a bounty hunter gold digger. It fell apart on me. I only used it for a week. Yeah, those are not ideal. That's all I'll say. Mud Swat says experience is important. People who have a couple years under their belt teaching people. Yeah. Teaching, do something for a decade and then advise. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. I don't know. There's a lot of people out in the hobby today that are they want to be the gurus, they want to be the wise sages, and they want to act like they've seen everything and done everything. You know, if you've got that type of an attitude, you're probably not learning much anymore. And so you may have all the answers right now, but you're not going to have them for long. I mean, that's the way I see that. And, you know, maybe I'm old-fashioned about that, but the people who stay humble are the people who keep learning, and they're the people who make our hobby and our community better by sharing knowledge rather than trying to hoard it or trying to act like there's some detecting God. I'm like, you know, get off your high horse. It's just metal detecting. You know, it's not like you're some celebrity. Celebrity metal detectrist. Whoa. Anyhow, so that's a top of a doll tea set. So that's pretty cool there. I'm going to do a couple of beads here for the last few minutes. I'm probably only a third of the way through all the marbles that we found, so I might do another live stream later on this week and clean a bunch more metal finds and a bunch more marbles. But anyway, I wanted to do a couple of beads here and kind of show you all the beads that we found. I'll rinse out this bowl and get ready for some beads. And so we find a ton of beads, all different styles and types. And you know, everything from large size beads to small, tiny little dainty seed beads. And here's just a little bit of a sample of that. And I'm gonna go grab a thing to clean these with. There it is. One of the things that I use to clean beads a lot is brass safety pin. This is also really good for picking some of the crud off of an aluminum item. If you've already used a brass brush on it to clean some crud off, then you can pick little pieces off with this because it won't really scratch as much as like steel will scratch it all to heck. So don't use an iron brush on a brass item. Use a brass or an iron brush on an aluminum item. Use a brass brush and use a brass safety pin. Anyhow, so I like to kind of let these soak a little bit before I start working on them. And again, your drain plug in. So these are all different beads, and I'm not quite sure what exactly these things are, but they're probably all necklace beads if I had to guess. But we sometimes get rosary beads down here, and we also get various other. Hey Bart, how's it going? Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, thanks so much. But this little bead probably came off of a a necklace of some sort, probably 1940s, 50s, maybe earlier than that. The beads that I find in this field are all different types, different kinds. This is a weird bead right here. This bead is definitely multi-faceted, and it's faceted unevenly, so that's pretty strange. And that's got to be pretty modern. It is glass, but it is just a weird kind of modern design, and I would say that's probably 50s or 60s if I had to guess. Pretty strange. And then we have another large size bead. Thanks so much, Gene. Yeah, large size bead here, and you know, these things are kind of hard to date. I'm a lot better at the beads that I find that are like colonial era, trade beads, palm oil, trade beads, various types, than I am with beads that are more modern. You know, but with beads, particularly in Louisiana, what you're going to find is that they're generally either beads from necklaces, beads from rosaries. So we do find the centerpieces, the little tiny brass centerpieces from rosaries. So sometimes you find those. The Russian blue trade beads and things like that, Italian 1700s trade beads. And then sometimes you also find Mardi Gras beads. And of course, Mardi Gras beads don't date any earlier than about the 1880s or 90s, most likely. And then you sometimes get things that are associated with those types of things, but you really can't tell whether something is a rosary bead or a Mardi Gras bead sometimes, because they're so close in appearance for some time. You know, so that's a neat bead right there. Here's another large bead, kind of strange. That's also glass. Just was laying on top of the ground, and we picked it up. And I'm gonna just do a couple of these beads here. This one looks like it was a little bit burned. It is glass, but it was definitely fire kissed at some point. And I'm gonna rinse out this center of this here. That would have been a nice bead, except that it's, again, like I said, been burned some. So then, let's see, I think these are very similar. Yep. So there's two beads from the same site that probably came from the same exact necklace. That's really wild. Totally awesome. Yeah, Patty, have a great night, my friend. Really appreciate you. I'm going to wrap up this live stream here pretty soon. So that's really cool when you can just randomly find, you know, eyeballing two beads from the same necklace. That's so wild. Very cool. Very cool. I have maybe 3 beads left here, and I'm going to call it a night. And all the other beads and all the other marbles and finds will have to wait for a later live stream here. Another one of these interesting glass beads. Very cool. Lots of whittling in that glass. I don't know if you can see that or not. And here we have a bead that has lots of faceting. It's like octagonally faceted. Pretty modern, I would say, if I had to guess. And here, I was saving this for last, hoping it was a trade bead. It is probably not a trade bead, but it might be that old. This is a tiny little cobalt blue bead. Dropped it back in the soup. Yeah, little tiny cobalt blue bead. I can see the rings of glass where that was wound around an iron mandrel to form it. So it is a handmade bead, and you can see those striations in the glass. Often they would either be this way if the bead was drawn, or this way if the bead was wound. So that's pretty cool. Little tiny cobalt blue treasure there. Well, folks, it's been a little over an hour. I've been hunched over the sink here for an hour. I love you all, but my hands are shriveled up, and I'm thinking it's about time for me to call this live stream. I want to thank you all so much for coming out to this first live stream. This is kind of how things are going to go. might as well just clean finds in front of people and talk to folks and build some community and answer some questions and so forth. And so, yeah, if you found this helpful, hopefully I'll see you all again. And yeah, take care, everybody. I want you all to have a great night.